Hello, friends, and welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by Chat Sports. We start with some news and rumors. At the top, we begin with Orlando Scandrick backing Dez Bryant. Folks are giving this one 4 stars because Orlando Scandrick did indeed support Dez Bryant. Scandrick went on undisputed last week, and unlike Bryce Butler, didn't fall for Skip Bayless's baiting about the wide receiver position. Scandrick supported Dez Bryant, said, "I'm not ready to jump off the Dez ship yet." That, folks, is why Scandrick is one of the top leaders on the Cowboys, even though he may not be on the team next year, but he did indeed support Dez Bryant. All right, folks, I am Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney for all the latest Cowboys news and rumors, which is what this show is all about. We're taking you through some of the more notable news and rumors out there, and at the end of the show, we'll also take you through some notable players who could be cut. But back to those rumors as we look up to the defensive side of the ball one more time. Could Kris Richard come to the Cowboys? This was one of the more late-breaking rumors on today's show, with Richard visiting the Cowboys on Sunday per ESPN. But the question is, will he join the Cowboys staff? If he does, there are 2 potential positions to keep an eye out for. Number 1 is just as the defensive backs coach. That's what Richard was before he joined the Seahawks as the DC. He was the Seattle cornersback coach. And then for the other position for the Cowboys, could he join as the defensive coordinator? It could be a Rod Marinelli, Matt Eberflus type situation. Remember, Matt turned down the chance to be the DC. Could the Cowboys offer a similar offer to Kris Richards to have him come over, be the DC, and move Rod Marinelli into the assistant head coach role and let Richard become the DC while Marinelli hangs out for another year, offers some support, and coaches the defensive line? Well, it's 2 stars for a reason. Keep an eye on it. But if this does happen, I think it would make Cowboys fans very, very excited. All right, folks, let's get to our next rumor. Jason Witten to the Pro Bowl. This one is indeed happening, folks. Witten has been named as the replacement for Zach Ertz. This will be Jason Witten's 11th Pro Bowl in his NFL career. And in the end, this might just end up being his last one. Now, you see 4 stars. Maybe you're wondering what the stars mean. Here's the explanation here for the rumor-o-meter. 0 stars, Eagles Super Bowl rings. It's still 0, although we might have to change that, so we'll check back in a couple weeks on that front. 1 star means there is a small shred of truth. 2 stars means the people are talking. 3 stars means it's pretty likely. And 4 stars means that, yes, Dez Bryant did indeed catch it. So that's what the rumor-o-meter means. So you see those stars, that's what it means. Let's get back to some more rumors here, folks. Number 4. Jason Garrett can't make in-game adjustments. This one coming in, not from the fans, which has been said many a time, but in particular from Terrell Owens, the former Cowboys wide receiver. He went on a bit of a Twitter rant and didn't really hold back about Jason Garrett, said he can't adjust and that he calls the same plays. And it's worth mentioning, folks, that Jason Garrett has blown 19 first-half leads in his time as the Cowboys coach, 4 of them coming this year. The reason it's only 3 stars? Well, it's not just Jason Garrett. It's the rest of the coaching staff as well, and Garrett's not the one calling the plays as well. I think that's worth pointing out. That's Scott Linehan, but it's 3 stars because it's pretty likely that Jason Garrett isn't great at making adjustments. Speaking of Jason Garrett, is he gone if the Cowboys miss the playoffs? This is not the first time we've mentioned this on the show, but it's popped up once again on Twitter from Mike Fisher, and it also seems pretty likely. If the Cowboys miss the playoffs next year, don't expect Jason Garrett to be the head coach again. Now, the only reason it's not 4 stars is what happens if Dak Prescott and or Ezekiel Elliott or other key players get hurt again? Will the Cowboys give Jason Garrett a bit of a pass and give him 1 more year? That's the scenario in which I see the Cowboys missing the playoffs and Garrett being retained, but I don't really think that's likely, and that's why it's 3 stars, because it is pretty likely if the Cowboys miss the playoffs next year that Garrett's gone. Speaking of possibly being gone, how about Anthony Hitchens and the Indianapolis Colts? This one just makes so much sense. Remember, folks, Matt Eberflus is going to be the defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts, and they happen to have a huge need at linebacker. Anthony Hitchens can get more money and more playing time if he goes and joins the Indianapolis Colts than if he stays with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, maybe the Colts go elsewhere. Maybe Hitchens wants to stay in Dallas. But I think it's pretty likely that you see Hitchens next year in a Colts jersey, which would mean linebacker is a huge need for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, so we're 6 rumors in, and we're not done yet. Let's get to number 7. Could Adrian Peterson replace Alfred Morris? It seems like every year here in Cowboys Nation we hear, hey, is this the year that Peterson joins the Cowboys? And don't get your hopes up there, folks. We're giving this one just 1 star because there is a small shred of truth to it. Every year we hear the connection between AD and the Cowboys. He wants to come back to Dallas, and he's a fan of the Cowboys. Jerry Jones, of course, loves him. But remember, Peterson is still under contract with the Cardinals, and does he really want to be a backup? That has not been Peterson's MO since he's been in the NFL. He doesn't want to play second fiddle, and that's exactly what he would be to Ezekiel Elliott. And with the way Rod Smith has played, Peterson might kind of be the third back because he's not going to play a lot on third down. So I don't think this is the last time we'll hear this rumor, but don't expect it to happen. We're giving it just 1 star. All right, next up on our rumor-o-meter, did the Cowboys pass on Nick Foles? We're giving this one 2 stars because it's kind of sort of true, but not totally true. So the Cowboys did originally pass on Nick Foles. Jerry Jones said Foles isn't an option back in 2016 because the team liked Kellen Moore as the backup. That did not turn out very well. But when Kellen Moore went down, the team did have talks with Nick Foles when Moore was hurt. And now it comes back up that, oh, well, maybe the Cowboys didn't want him at all. It's a partial truth here because the Cowboys, I think, had Foles accepted an offer because they did talks with the agent, he would have been the backup. In the end, kind of worked out pretty well because the Cowboys went with Dak Prescott, and now he is the team's franchise quarterback, despite what some of you like to think in the comments section. All right, our last rumor of the day. Are Cowboys fans actually cheering for the Eagles in Super Bowl 52? Unfortunately, there are some Cowboys fans who are rooting for Philadelphia. Now, part of this stems because they don't want the Patriots to win. Some of this stems because they don't want they're cheering for NFC East overall. But please, fans, let's not cheer for Philadelphia. For starters, I really don't have to change our 0 for the rumor-o-meter segment because right now it's Eagles Super Bowl rings, and they've got 0. So let's not cheer for Philadelphia. Plus, I kind of don't want to deal with Eagles fans if they win the Super Bowl at long last. So 2 stars because, yes, there are some who are doing it. But for the most part, the Cowboys fans are smart enough to know to not cheer for Philadelphia. All right, folks, those were your rumors and news roundup for today. Let's get a little bit more fun segment here outside of the news and rumors as we'll head to potential players to be cut. And once again, folks, I'm Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney for all of the latest news and rumors on the Dallas Cowboys. And like the page, you'll be notified when we go live multiple times each week. All right, let's get now to some notable players who could be cut. And we start with one that it seems like everybody wants to cut this player. But in the end, I will be very, very surprised, stunned even, if the Cowboys cut Terrance Williams. Now, we've seen it many a time in the comments section that the Cowboys fans want T-Will gone. Here's the big issue with cutting Terrance Williams, and I agree with you. His play has not been good enough, but the contract doesn't make sense to cut him. If you cut him before June 1st, you actually have to give him an extra $2 million in terms of the way it affects the salary cap. If you cut him after June 1st, you save 0 money. It just doesn't make sense for Dallas to cut Terrance Williams. He will be on the roster next year. The question is, will he be a backup to a new number 2 wide receiver? But T-Will will not be cut. Someone who could be cut, although maybe later in the offseason, in training camp even, is one Chaz Green. And I think all Cowboys fans agree with me. He was really bad against Atlanta. I don't really know what happened to Chaz Green in that game. He looked fine before he'd played in other games, and then against Atlanta, it all just fell apart, and Green couldn't do anything. He was benched, didn't really play again after that. His cap hit and cap savings, it's minimal, but it's still an example of a player you don't need on the roster because it's very clear Chaz Green is not the Cowboys' long-term swing tackle. Cut him. Go get somebody else on the roster. So T-Will and Green are at 1 or 2. How about James Hanna coming in at number 3 at tight end? Hanna made some plays this year. He had a couple catches, nothing too spectacular, had a TD. But he's entering the final year of his contract. He has a $3.5 million cap hit. 2.75 of that will be saved if he's cut. Kind of a no-brainer. Jeff Swain can do James Hanna's job. Oh, there's also a guy named Rico Gathers that the team loves and the Cowboys fans love as well. So I will be stunned if Hanna's on the roster next year. Expect him to be cut. and free up just under $3 million in cap savings. So Williams, Green, and Hanna to number 4 now. Benson, Mayowa, and Mayowa's been a nice piece of the Cowboys roster. I think that's the best way of describing it. Mayowa has not been a superstar defensive end, hasn't been incredible, but he's got a sack, a couple tackles for loss. He's a nice backup rotational defensive end. Here's the thing, though. Are you going to pay a backup defensive end almost $4 million when you can save almost $3 million of that? No, you're not. So I would be stunned if Mayowa is not on the if he is on the Cowboys roster. Excuse me. I expect him to be cut, especially when the Cowboys franchise tag or re-sign DeMarcus Lawrence. There just won't be space for Mayowa's contract. He will be a free agent in the offseason. So those are your first 4: Terrance Williams, Chaz Green, James Hanna, and Benson Mayowa. Now let's get to some of the bigger names that involve more cap savings as well. We'll head to number 5, Orlando Scandrick. Has been a long-term player for the Dallas Cowboys. Was actually almost traded during the draft and as part of a deal for Kenny Vaccaro. And now that we're at this point of the year, I think it's safe to say Scandrick will not be back as a member of the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't mean to minimize anything Scandrick has done for Dallas, but at this point in his NFL career, with the way the Cowboys roster is set up, Scandrick is now a progress inhibitor for the young players like Chidobe Awuzie and Jordan Lewis. A $5 million plus cap hit, $3 million of which can be saved if he's cut after June 1st. Don't expect Scandrick to be back on the Cowboys next year. They will try to trade him as well, although with the back injury, he might not have a ton of interest in the offseason. So let's get to number 6 now. Go back to the offensive side of the ball. How about Cole Beasley, the Cowboys wide receiver? Great rapper, but didn't have the same success on the field that he did in last year's campaign. 36 catches, 314 yards, and 4 TDs. The TDs are nice, but that's not normal Cole Beasley numbers, and now it becomes a contract game for Cole. $4.25 million cap hit and a $3.25 million in cap savings. That's a significant amount of money for a guy that maybe you could just replace him with Ryan Switzer. And you drafted Switzer in the fourth round, excuse me. Beasley's time might unfortunately be up for the Dallas Cowboys, even though his rap career is just beginning. Let's get to number 7 then on the defensive side of the ball. Tyrone Crawford. If you had asked me this time last year, I would have said, oh yeah, Crawford's gone after next season. But now, I'm actually not so sure. He was pretty solid this year. Not a great pass rushing threat, but he was great against the run. He does have a $9 million cap hit, but if you're going to cut him, you have to wait until after June 1st when you save $6 million as opposed to just under $2 million. And if you cut him with that post-June 1st designation, at that point, you can't use that money in free agency, and that kind of hurts the Cowboys because they don't have a ton of cap space. So it's an interesting question here for Crawford. I think a lot of what happens with Crawford is how much do the Cowboys trust Taco Charlton? Can Charlton come and replace Crawford next year? If they think he can, maybe that's the route they go. If they don't think so, they could keep Crawford for one more season, even though his cap hit is rather high. And then our last player, and one that I think everyone expected and everyone loves to talk about, how about Dez Bryant at number 8? Dez's contract is interesting, and it's a tough decision here for the Dallas Cowboys because Dez Bryant has not been the Dez Bryant we're accustomed to. He was not as good as he's been with Tony Romo. But his cap hit is $16.5 million. That's a significant cap hit for a wide receiver. In terms of cap savings, you can save $8.5 million. Now, that's a pretty decent chunk of change, but in the free agent market, can you get someone at 8.5 to properly replace Dez Bryant and be that number 1 receiver when, frankly, outside of Dez, the Cowboys had very little production from their receivers? And then would you even try to do it as a post-June 1st to save $12.5 million, which you can't use in free agency? So my guess here is the Cowboys keep Dez Bryant. But I want to know from you guys, which player do you want to cut the most? Give us a heart for Tyrone Crawford, a wow face for Dez Bryant, a laughing face for Cole Beasley, and a like for Orlando Scandrick. If it was me, I think you're going to cut Orlando Scandrick the most because as good as he's been for Dallas, he is now a progress inhibitor. I fully expect Orlando Scandrick to be on a different team next year, be it a cut or a trade. Let's take you through those players who could be cut one more time for those of you just now joining us. Terrance Williams at number 1, Chaz Green at number 2, James Hanna at number 3, Benson Mayowa checks in at number 4. At number 5 is Orlando Scandrick, followed up by Cole Beasley, Tyrone Crawford, and of course, Dez Bryant there at number 8. All right, folks, I am Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney for all the latest Cowboys news and rumors. If you haven't already, like the page. You'll be notified when we go live multiple times each week with news, rumors, and so much more all on the Dallas Cowboys. And if you missed anything from today's show, don't worry. We'll play again here for you guys in just a second, so don't go anywhere. But for producer Brett Scott, I am Tom Downey. You guys stay classy out there.